Now I will invite Dale Hall on the stage for our second presenter. Dale will share latest update on the research news, collaboration opportunities, and also about the research. R. Dale Hall, FSA, MAAA, CERA, CFA, is a managing director of research for the SOA. In Dale's role, Dale coordinates the SOA strategic research partnerships, oversees SOA experience studies, coordinates research across the SOA wide variety of actuarial practice areas, and directs the SOA data-driven in-house research initiative. Dale is a frequent speaker at insurance and retirement industry meetings to highlight SOA research, including presentations to the actuarial task force of the NAIC and Congressional Committee testimony on pension plan mortality rates. Dale has appeared on behalf of the SOA in a variety of media outlets, including coverage on C-SPAN and National Geographic's Breakthrough television series, and host of the Society of Actuaries Research Insight podcast. Prior to joining the SOA, Dale spent over 20 years in the U.S. insurance industry, primarily as chief actuary for the life or health companies of Country Financial. While at Country Financial, Dale was active in industry as a member of the ACLI Actuarial Committee and was an adjunct professor in the Actuarial Science program at Illinois State University. Dale is a fellow of the Society of Actuaries and a member of the American AAA. And Dale, with this, I give you the virtual floor. Please go ahead, Dale. Thank you.
Good to connect with everyone here. Glad that you've joined us and hope to give you an overview, with a primary from a faculty perspective as well as some of the research work that we're doing at the SOA Research Institute. So I'll cover a little bit of the SOA Research Institute background, some of the key things that we're doing. We will talk a little bit about current research topics. I think artificial intelligence is clearly one of them, and highlight some of the things that we've been focusing on behalf of the actuarial profession, kind of this growing world of how to use AI responsibly, some of the roles that the SOA and the Research Institute are taking to kind of put the actuarial profession prominently as a good risk manager and good professionalism and governance surrounding the use of AI. Along the way, we'll highlight some things that we've been pushing out from research, especially some that are very close to home with Asia research projects. We've been really fortunate to expand the amount of research that we're doing outside of North America over the past 3 or 4 years. And I think that's even just the tip of the iceberg. I think there's more coming on projects that we aspire to do that are more local in the Asia Pacific markets. So let me, kind of move on to a little bit of background here for the Research Institute. Proud that our Research Institute now kind of has its own branding that's probably new in the last 3 or 4 years. Obviously, still very, very closely tied to the SOA. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily want to categorize it as distant or disparate from what the basic, what goes on in our education and professional development. We are really, really involved in all that goes on with those areas of the SOA as well. But it does help kind of give a brand, or help give, I think it rolls off the tongue pretty easy to talk about the work that we do as part of our Research Institute. It's also probably opened some doors for the actuarial profession to participate in new places where it hasn't before, new partnerships, new ideas, and really with that phrasing of the Research Institute, it just allows us very quickly to jump into all the great things that we're doing, rather than here's the SOA, what do you do? Education and research and professional development. Oh, what type of research do you do? Here, when we say the word Research Institute, that really just helps explain it, I think in short words, a lot better. We have a goal of really representing the profession well and being inclusive in the type of people that we that we choose to do research projects. We have a proposal process that we'll walk through a little bit too, to talk about new things that we want to study. But it's been great to work with wide variety of types of researchers over the past 10 years since I've been here on staff, ranging from academics, ranging from consulting firms and insurance companies, ranging from even, people who are working day to day as an actuary and have an aspiration to kind of share knowledge and study new things, all on behalf and for the benefit of the actuarial profession. And then we publish them through our website. I think one of the great benefits is that there's no real paywall or anything. So the research that we do is available clearly to members, but a lot of it has, a societal and public focus to it as well. And therefore, having it published through our website makes it, free and available to regulators, to, non-members, to the general public. We use that a lot to connect with the media as well. It's pretty common that we'll have media interviews to talk about the research that we're doing, several coming up this week and next week to do that too. And glad that it's kind of open and available and objective research for everyone to take in. I mean, what the types of research that we do, maybe not surprising, experience studies are certainly a key part of our work. Experience studies are really, one of the main reasons the SOA started to do research. When the organization started back in 1949, several US-based life insurance companies kind of came together and said, we now have a growing set of individual life insurance. And since antitrust rules would prevent us from sending our personal information at our company, our internal information to other companies, we really needed a common place, a common conduit to study in the aggregate that research work. And so there were several organizations kind of floating around. They joined together to become the Society of Actuaries. And the first research study ever published became the 1941 CSO. And that's a valuation standard that's still used in the US today for policies that were written back at that point in time. Many insurance company balance sheets still have a reference to that original table from the SOA. And it's grown exponentially, believe me, over the last 70 years or more, where now not only do we study insurance contingencies and mortality, but across all different lines of business of insurance, all different types of products into pension and retirement. And it's really grown as well beyond North America into studying experience analysis all around the world. We're very fortunate that we have committees who come together, volunteer committees. Many of them are, the leading experts or specialize in the products and contingencies that we're studying. So they bring that knowledge to the table. It's this huge benefit of being able to study collectively, that type of experience under the guidance and direction of our volunteer committees. Recently in the US insurance markets, we formed a partnership with LIMRA, which is the Life Insurance Market Research Association. They have many members all around the world. There are probably a lot of member companies in the markets where you might be teaching as well. And that partnership just enables us to get better data access. There's an enclave, that we've built with LIMRA to be able to collect information and do these types of experience studies, with our staff hands-on deep into all the data, running those types of queries. We have pretty strong interaction with actuarial regulators, not only in the US, but in growing in markets around the world. They're an important, not only are many of them members of the SOA, but they're an important constituent to us because the studies, especially experience studies that we do, end up being a strong input into the type of regulatory work that they do. They become the standards for valuing insurance liabilities or pension liabilities. They become the standards that, in the US, the Department of Labor and the IRS use for pension plans. They become the standards or the common language that the actual profession speaks with regulators. So when we're setting assumptions to do asset adequacy testing or cash flows or something like that, there's a common language of using SOA experience studies to set those assumptions. And we're doing a little bit more increasing global experience studies work as well. We've had participation in a wide variety of international experience studies, probably most prominently working with actuaries in mainland China as they developed a new individual life table and kind of keeping track of where those projects are going. We were working with the Social Security system in the Saudi Arabian market to help study their experience. And that's the types of things I think that we aspire to do. So if you're an academic and want to kind of partner with local companies and local regulators or ministries of finance to look at those types of experience projects, that's something that we would be more than happy to step into and assist with our guidance and work collaboratively on that type of work. Beyond experience studies, I mean, that's just kind of one of the major flavors of research that we do. We have practice research that we do. These practice research projects are driven so that they become papers and reports and things like that that are on topics of the day, and they become very useful in helping the actual profession kind of stay in tune, stay up to speed with the benefit of the SOA behind them on new topics, new methods, new ideas that are emerging. We have 6 strategic research programs. They're on the screen here. They're very actively driven, led by staff, but actively driven by decisions from our volunteer steering committees that guide each one of them. I mean, each of these will produce, say 10 or 12 different reports every year. Those committees are routinely brainstorming on what is new in those areas, what types of RFPs might be done. It's not surprising that things that the actual profession historically has been known for, aging and retirement, mortality and longevity, and especially in the US market, healthcare cost trends are 3 of those strategic research programs. But we sort of pride ourselves too on making sure that we're always, on the leading edge of new things that are happening within the profession and within related industries. We have a program on actuarial innovation and technology that has been really valuable as you can imagine, over the past years on studying analytics and data science and new techniques, and obviously in the more current days, getting a lot into artificial intelligence work as well. We have one on catastrophe and climate, which is certainly a growing risk that actuaries are working on all around the world. Regardless of what market that you're in, catastrophes, wildfires or typhoons or hurricanes or different earthquakes. We've just seen many different natural catastrophes happen in many markets around the world. And the climate change risks that go along with some of those are important as well. Some of the catastrophes that's studied there too are what I'll call like man-made catastrophes, a little bit of terrorism that's studied, cyber risks, things like that, man-made events that, put things at risk. So that's a really broad category with a lot of good information. And our climate risk studies are a pretty important growing part of what we're doing there. The final is on diversity, equity, inclusion, and a little bit more U.S. focus on that because those topics are more prominent in the U.S., but trying to do a lot more research that focuses on differences in socioeconomics, differences in access to healthcare by race, by ethnicity, by age and sex and things like that, and just trying to put the actual profession at the forefront of highlighting what the trends are and maybe coming up with solutions as well. I put this up here just as for a benefit. If you go to our SOA website, you'll pretty clearly see immediately, either in the middle of the page or down the left-hand guidance, the words Research Institute. If you click on that, you'll see this broad set of topic areas that we have been studying. They include those strategic research programs, but then even beyond that, a wide variety of topic areas where we're consistently working with our committees, working with sections, working with our program steering committees to highlight tons of different research projects for the benefit of the profession. And then finally, we try to emphasize as well, getting the word out about the research projects that we do. We've got a great partnership with our marketing communications area who helps us convey all that's going on to our membership and really even broader, the world around us. We do have a Research Insights podcast, as Yudish was mentioning. I host that and typically put out one episode a week, maybe 3 or 4 a month, and they cover typically the interviews with researchers who've been working on projects as we release them and give you a little bit of a taste of what the project's like. Every once in a while, we'll do special editions or kind of pick a topic that's going on in the current event world. The solar eclipse was a big thing here in the US over the last week. So we had a special podcast on the math and science behind that. But just a way to kind of get out to our members and maybe yourselves and your students, things that are going on in the actual profession, a quick, typically about 15 to 20-minute podcast, and a good way to digest that rather than pulling down reports. We have a playlist on SOA YouTube, a research playlist that does similarly, videos and conversations with authors of our projects. That's a good place to digest things as well. Probably most importantly, I would encourage you to follow the Society of Actuaries on social media. If you'd like, connect with me there. We do a heck of a lot as well in pushing things out in the Asia markets on WeChat and Weibo. That's a pretty active channel that our staff uses to communicate out, what's new, what types of research projects are there, more and more as well. We are publishing what I'll call executive summaries of some of our key research projects in simplified Chinese, posting them along. Our research is done in English as a first language, but doing a short summary in simplified Chinese for people to take a look at it that way as well. So with that, it's kind of like the background of the Research Institute. I did want to give a little bit of guidance on how you can participate with us or share with others around you the ways that research can be done and your participation in it. I'm going to take a few minutes too just to highlight what's going on in the artificial intelligence world, because that seems to be a place where we're growing in our research, going to be ever more impacting actuaries who are working and the next generation of actuaries. It'll probably be just a common skill set that the next generation of actuaries are bringing with them to employers, and that's a great thing to see. Two things here. We do have a page, and I think it's listed down at the bottom of the links are there. How to get to our request for proposals. So if you go to the SOA website and click on the Research Institute, one of the things you'll see there is call for proposals. And we are constantly updating this page with new things that we would want to go study. Right now, it's even a quick snapshot that there's 5 or 6 or 7 different current requests that are out there for people to send us proposals to participate on topics that we've identified through our committees. And that's not unusual. There typically always are 5 or 6 or 7 RFPs that are out there. One will close and we'll put 2 more up. I mean, it's just an ongoing process to come up with, these are the types of things that we want to go study. So if you're ever interested in proposing on a project, that's the place to go. The RFPs give, I think, a pretty good overview of what we'd like you to submit. It's not uncommon for us to use academic researchers, especially when they're very knowledgeable on the topic or are going to be working in partnership with someone in industry to study that particular type of topic. So if that's something that you want to drive further on or know someone in your network, that's a great place to point them to. It's amazing how many RFPs sometimes we have to sift through. There's a project we just did a couple of weeks ago, and I think we had 10 or 12 different RFPs, and so needed to walk through, which are the best and how to select them. Some we get 2 or 3, some we get again 10 or 12, but really great to see the variety of people who are participating with us on these projects. And for the academic world as well, we do have a committee on knowledge extension research who's very focused on an annual grant competition that we hold. This typically opens up for submissions around the fall, and we just finished making some decisions after doing letters of intent and narrowing it down to some prime candidates. But these the Committee on Knowledge Extension Research gives, I would call it like smaller grants. Most of these average sizes of grants are in the $10,000 to $15,000 range. They either fund academic research at universities or maybe postgraduate or graduate research projects. This committee also has some funding to when things get accepted to the annual actuarial research conference to support travel for presenters to go there. And these are projects that are certainly intended to head towards being published in our North American Actuarial Journal, or alternatively, the Casualty Actuarial Society has a journal called Variance. So both of those can be candidates for papers here. We actually encourage, that the end goal be to do a submission to those peer-reviewed journals so that we can advance actuarial science knowledge through the academic journals that are out there. And then let's move on to AI. Maybe take 5-10 minutes here just to talk about the growing thing that is happening in the world on AI. It's everywhere. I don't think you can turn on the news anywhere around the world and hear about the impact of artificial intelligence and what it means and new technology. Certainly some shapes and forms have been around for a while, driverless vehicles, or even the common things that we see in our word processing, where it's predicting what the next word we're going to type in the Word document might be, or things like that. But the kind of the headlines for a while were whether is this going to be really, really good, or is it going to be really, really terrible? Could it destroy humanity? Things like that. I think I'm much, much more optimistic than some of those headlines might be. I think I'm more on dismissing AI, extinction fears, and looking for ways that transformative artificial intelligence and artificial general intelligence may be happening over the time. I think while there still might be a debate about being fearful or excited about it, I'm definitely 95% on the excited side, already seeing some of the cool things that are happening within our profession, making use of it as a really, really, really helpful tool. We've done certainly some research projects already on the types of things that are happening within artificial intelligence. A main one that we just published here in the last 6 weeks was a primer on generative AI for actuaries. It's linked here, but I'm sure if you do a quick Google, a search on the words primer, generative AI, SOA, it's the first thing that's going to come up. So I encourage you to do that. You'll go right to the landing page of the report, see the background of what was going on. And then also, it's a really helpful read on, a snapshot of at least the current ideas that actuaries are using for generative AI in their day-to-day work. There's a long list of activities that are in there. Some are very simple, some are more complex. And, I think the one thing that we probably have in our mindset is this report will probably be good for the next 12 or 18 months, and then we'll have to, redo it because there'll be so many more new concepts and new tools that both generative AI and artificial intelligence are doing along the way. The quick summary of this, again, does range from simple to complex. Some of the simpler things that the report mentions, using it for general productivity is certainly, what we're seeing in the business world in general. And then, of course, actuaries leveraging that knowledge base of artificial intelligence. So something as simple as doing the closed captioning or summarizing a meeting, or even drafting content. I have to admit, I'm probably not the world's best author, but I've been using it a lot to, give me some writing ideas or to start things off for me, and then I will take it from there. I really love that it has this ability to leverage off large language models and be able to produce at least draft content that I, as a human, then need to review and edit and make sure I'm not taking someone else's intellectual property for sure. But for general productivity, that's really helpful. On on the other end of things, the coding and software development, I think that's almost going to be a standard tool for the next generation of actuaries. It's just impressive how since computer coding is based off languages to begin with, I mean, every language has their own syntax. When an AI model trains on that syntax, and you ask it to do something as simple as write a loop that does this, or write a nested if then statements that kind of accomplish this idea, immediately it's able to produce things like that, and give suggestions of variables. It's almost a little bit scary, because then a couple times it said, well, then the next thing I'm sure you want to do is the following code, and it keeps on generating maybe even more than what I was asking it for. So I think that's really just a basic efficiency that we see coming, and actuaries are already using in developing code to program actuarial things that they want to do in their work. I'll pick out a couple other things here. I mean, I do think that the ability to analyze data even deeper is there. We probably have a goal of doing that with some of our experience analysis in the next 6 to 12 months, where when we go to query things for our experience studies, we're probably already by default noting, oh, we think these are the 10 or 12 variables that are going to be driving the experience. It's age and sex and smoking status and health conditions and things like that drive mortality, or occupation, and what type of collar of a job you have that are driving pension mortality. But even more than that, the AI never gets tired of thinking of the next thing. So you could set an AI tool to work on it. It may pull up 3 or 4 other variables or other combinations of things that it's seeing when it's looking at mortality trends. And I think that that's pretty exciting to think about, that there could be new things that we'd want to study even more, given that artificial intelligence is helping us analyze data. And then when it comes to using AI for claims and underwriting, pretty strong examples there, mainly in the property casualty world for claims, about artificial intelligence, being able to decipher images and knowing, whether there's damage on a roof, or damage, to an automobile, or anything like that, in order to better adjudicate the claims and make the claims process more efficient. That certainly is part of where insurance companies are definitely going with this type of work day to day with artificial intelligence. There's a really good paper I want to point to people to. I'm going to give Milliman credit for this, but they've done a really good job of also capturing even deeper artificial intelligence's use in insurance applications. So again, a paper that says, well, what is kind of the whole value chain of someone applying for insurance, an agent, working with a client, the underwriting and rate making process, the even when in force, the type of in-force management that happens, all the way through claim adjudication and customer service. All those things are leveraging off language capabilities, and really, actuaries are being called on to be resident experts in a lot of places, since they know the math, they know the technology, and they know the analytic ability. And that's great to see. I think the artificial intelligence just helps put the profession stronger in the limelight of what can be done. And probably another reason, those of you on the webinar here, any way you can build that into your teaching systems and your coursework for the next generation of actuaries will just give them a higher advantage, a higher edge when it comes to joining the workforce. There's a lot of information. Some is very customer service and customer experience oriented. We now live in a world where everything tends to be much more individualized, and insurance is probably becoming that way as well. But to purchase anything online, it seems like the systems already know what my preferences are. There's just so many decisions that it's guiding me through these systems that is quickly coming into the customer experience in the insurance and financial services world as well. One thing I included here too, there's a link here, a Vimeo.com link that if you have the time, it's about a 40 to 45-minute video. It's well worth the exercise for sure to kind of watch through. This is a session that we had as part of our SOA Refocus meeting. Refocus is our very, very prominent kind of our C-suite US life insurance or North America insurance life insurance meeting where attendees are CEOs and CFOs and chief actuaries and chief underwriters. It's where direct writers and reinsurers are meeting and talking in the hallways and networking and making deals and things like that. But a really great session that was actually moderated by our SOA president-elect, Amanda Hugg. And on the panel were 4 people who are using generative AI examples in the life insurance world, day to day already. I think it was the chief underwriter from Northwestern Mutual and the chief data officer from New York Life, someone from Amazon Web Services, someone from a InsurTech Digital Owl who's been working a lot with around the world on underwriting algorithms. And they just give some really practical examples of the promise of generative AI in the life insurance world. And as the title here also notes, there's a lot of learning experience, I think, that they give along the way. Here's what worked, here's what didn't, maybe saving, the rest of the world some headaches by, noting how they're studying this, also how they're responsibly implementing it, making sure that there's always a human involvement. And you can tell quickly how they're using the talents of the actuarial profession to assist in getting those types of tools into day-to-day practice. I think, in your teaching mode, here's kind of 2 things that I challenge you to even go a step further on actuarial applications of artificial intelligence. There's kind of this next phase of what's called prompt engineering. So now that we actually have AI tools, the question is, how can we optimize how we use them? It's like, hey, I have a car, but if I don't know how to drive it, it really isn't going to get me anywhere. If I have a bicycle and I don't know how to ride it, then it's really of no use to me. It's a great and powerful tool for transportation, but if I don't learn the mechanics of it, then it's going to sit in my driveway, or it's going to sit in my garage, or sit on my, sit on my porch and never be used. And prompt engineering is really, I think, the next level of making sure that the power in artificial intelligence is unleashed. So the concepts here are, not only, what are the right questions on how to guide the artificial intelligence to what you want it to produce in actual applications, maybe at times like giving it a persona and saying, you need to analyze this data from the point of view of our chief financial officer, our CEO, or, from our legal and governance angle. Help me understand what the right ways to study the data happen to be. And I think that's becoming a more and more common conversation, is optimizing the use of this really powerful tool through prompt engineering. The other is, kind of creating actual training sets. I mean, most of the generative pre-trained transforming tools that are used, day to day by the public are trained on almost trained on the internet, trained on all this kind of information that is out there. I think there's a huge benefit coming of creating our own training sets within the work that we do, and having a GPT type tool go analyze that. So I may load into my Dale GPT training set, for example, the last 20 asset adequacy memorandums that I've written, and they show all the analysis that I've done. And then I go and train my GPT tool on that and say, give me the summary of what the trends are from these most recent asset adequacy analyses, and put it in the language that I can use with my board of directors, create this persona. So building your own training sets, whether it's words, whether it's data, something like that, in a closed environment, and letting the tool train itself on that information rather than just a broad set of the internet information. Here's the case where we actually know what things are trained on, rather than the uncertainty of training happening with some of these tools on huge volumes of public information. I think that's a next level type of tool and a next level type of learning process that I would encourage in your teaching is, if we're going to get into AI, then here's the business practical applications. How do we do actuarial training sets that then we put an actuarial GPT against to generate things that we're looking for? There's a question out there, of course, what the risk and opportunities are. I'll quickly note, there have been other transformative eras that many of us have lived through, or the world has seen over the past couple hundred years. Industrial Revolution, people were probably asking at that point, hey, is this machine thing a good or bad thing? It's going to eliminate some jobs, yet it increases efficiency of our society, infinitely more. And in turn, there was this transformation in that industrial revolution by even creating new industries that we couldn't even think of. The internet revolution, the dot-com revolution was probably part of that as well. I mean, there are some professions that are just different than what they were 30 years ago. Travel agents, I guess, are an example. Used to be you'd have to kind of submit your request, come back maybe 3 or 4 days later. The travel agent would have done, this research on antiquated systems that we consider today, and we'd have to choose, what flights we want to get on or what hotel we want to use. Well, those are days gone by for sure. Obviously, we're doing that all through the power of the internet and a whole new digital economy. Everything's more efficient. So, on the right-hand side of the screen is this book that we've used a little bit in the past, not only with our board of directors, but I found really, really important to kind of think about, how do we know what the future of professions are, what of the actuarial profession, I guess, in this case? Is there this grave outcome that we're expecting, or is it just a whirlwind of opportunity? I think I'm certainly on the opportunity side of that equation. It just talks about how professions get transformed, how maybe we build these new technologies to make our world just very, very efficient, and then we can actually provide even more thought leadership and services to our employer, to our clients, things like that. So that's kind of the inflection point I think we're trying to sit at and discuss with AI. There's this big difference with AI, that there's this power of exponential growth in technology. The problem is, unlike the Industrial Revolution and internet, the Industrial Revolution may have taken decades for it to kind of fully form. The internet may have taken 5 to 10 years for it to fully form. But the pace of change with AI is like in the next 18 to 24 months. I mean, that's how fast I think things will be changing, even day to day in our own work at the SOA. More and more use of those types of tools for efficiency. But positive that the actual profession and the next generation of actuaries are going to use that, increasingly to their benefit for efficiency. With artificial intelligence, though, comes a little bit of ethical and responsible use. We did a report early on that talked about the ethical use of artificial intelligence for actuaries. This report, it's linked here, and you see the cover. It really highlights some of the ethical risks that arise from using AI in actuarial practice. I think it gives a really good level set to say, AI might be generating a whole bunch of information for you to consider, but since we're making decisions, and since humans are involved at the end result of our decisions, kind of have to put our human hat on as well, and be wary and kind of take with a little bit of grain of salt the information that's produced, and ensure that it's being used ethically and responsibly. There's kind of a pillar system that is built into that particular report that walks through things that you should be aware of. Obviously, responsibility is kind of key, number one. The report talks about different types of responsibility for using ethical use of artificial intelligence. I mean, to the extent where you don't use it right, there could be criminal liability, there could be direct liability. And so you need to make sure that you're using artificial intelligence responsibly. Kind of the responsibility rests with the actuary or the team that produces applications or output based on AI, and making sure that they're looking at this through the human lens. Transparency is important too. If conclusions from artificial intelligence use are derived then how do we know how it was linking all the things together? I think this is where the mathematics underlying machine learning and artificial intelligence are for the benefit of actuaries. We know where some of this predictive analytics of the next word in my Word document or a set of ideas that the AI might be linking together, where they come from. And so transparency is encouraged to be at the core of the use of artificial intelligence within our work as actuaries. Predictability is really important. Does the AI environment provide a sense of where it's coming up with similar results if I were to run it 10 or 15 or 20 times in a row? Try to minimize the occurrence of unpredictable outcomes in building your system. Auditability probably goes a little bit with transparency as well. How can we continuously track the actions that the intelligence went through in order to develop something that came out of it? And then incorruptibility is there as well, making sure that it's robust against manipulation, making sure that you understand what the artificial intelligence is trained on. So I think that's a good reference for you and maybe your students as well, who are trying to understand what's in it for them or what that means for artificial intelligence in the future. There's obviously some limitations just to be aware of too. Obviously, artificial intelligence output only as good as what it's trained on. Have to understand the context. We could put into artificial intelligence system, that your favorite team won the world championship 10 times in a row. It wouldn't understand the irony or the context, whether that's a true or false statement. And so kind of have to know what is inside the training to know what the artificial intelligence will be producing. And I think we're still at the generative point of all of this. It's spitting out a lot of potentially helpful information. I think we're not quite yet at maybe the advisory potential of artificial intelligence. Yeah, there might be like investment robo-advisors and things like that, but it's really not really taking in like a human can the full context of decision making and advisement for taking action. So I think that's still a limitation that the world is trying to battle with. We at the SOA are really involved and growing every day, it seems, on making sure that the actual profession is strongly a part of the advancement of AI, using it increasingly in their work, using it responsibly. And our research institute has actually been selected in the last couple of months to participate in the U.S. in an AI Safety Institute consortium. We had the President Biden in his office give an executive order back in October, November of last year, saying that this is a priority for the Department of Commerce in the United States. There is a National Institute of Standards and Technology that took that charge and created a consortium. We were one of probably almost 1,000 different entities that applied to be part of it, and we were selected to do that, probably because of some of the past experience that we've already had on doing projects and writing up the responsible use of artificial intelligence for the insurance and financial services industries. It's a great group to be part of. You'll probably see more output from us on articles and writing and stuff like that, reports. It is the Apples and Amazons and NVIDIAs of the world. It is, top universities that we're participating with, but we're proud to be part of that research group and making sure that the actual profession is a really big part of it. There's a lot of working groups there. What we're focusing a lot more today on is AI risk management and governance. That's a big part of what this consortium is focusing on. And then even slightly the evolution of synthetic data. Our profession is very data driven. There's a big opportunity to transform, I guess, actual data that companies may collect, but then turn it into synthetic data that more of us can use or produces similar results to the underlying data, even though there might be private information in the base data. So I think we're trying to investigate what these positive outcomes of AI can be if we're able to produce synthetic data sets for more people to study along the way. I just wanted to highlight too, kind of transitioning for a moment from AI into back to our research work. We're increasingly doing more and more research projects that are local to the markets that you're teaching in. So I would encourage you to point yourselves and your students to these types of projects, because they'll be the types of activities that when they enter the workforce, that they'll be a part of. Three I put on this page, they're just a subset of our broad set of international research that we've been doing. We're really fortunate to have Xiao Xu, who's a lecturer at the University of New South Wales, be an extension of our SOA staff in the local time zones. She works with Wai Ling and Jesse Lee and others to kind of pull together research projects, and therefore we can work with researchers in those markets on their own time zones. We can work with a project oversight group on, that are local in the market on their time zone. Just a couple examples here. One is the role of insurers in developing the third pillar of China's pension system. If you're aware, the future of the demographics of mainland China, are aging just like many other Asia Pacific markets, and the government has come forth to say, there still will be things like social security systems and employer-sponsored retirement systems, but more and more we'd like to encourage the insurance industry in mainland China to be part of the solution and encourage consumers in those markets to seek out, lifetime income or longevity, mitigating longevity risk through insurance companies. So there's a really good report that shows how that is developing and what the roles and opportunities are for insurers to be part of that third pillar. The market readiness of long-term care products in Asia Pacific markets is part of this too, where it gives a little bit of market by market study on how there's a need for long-term care and what types of products or services might need to evolve. What types of skilled nursing facilities or other things, how would those play given the culture, given the dynamics of different Asia Pacific markets. Really helpful report there. And then, environmental and societal and governance for the insurance and pension industry in Asia Pacific markets are becoming more and more prominent, that local market regulators are asking pension plans and insurance companies and others to consider different environmental risks, making sure they have good governance, paying attention to their role in society. So that report gives a highlight of all that's going on in those markets and kind of things to come in those markets. Let me just finish up then here with kind of the collaboration opportunities that we've been investing more time in at the SOA, but also collaborating with local market academics. A lot of partnership opportunities that are out there. We've had a lot of focus recently on growing our connection with corporations, with foundations, even with regulators to sponsor additional research. We can do more if we find projects that are in the wheelhouse, I guess, of others who are out there who have the capital and want to fund the type of research. We feel that we're known for being a very data driven and objective in our research, and companies and foundations like that they can hire us to do the research and work with us to do the research, knowing that there'll be an objective analysis as we work to do that research. We're participating more and more with universities to be part of broader grant proposals. So in your academic world, if there's an opportunity that you're thinking about, applying to different organizations for grants, one of the things that we've had success on, and shown on the right-hand side of the page, is, we're now part of a National Science Foundation grant in the United States to research wildfire research applications. It's in partnership with Temple University and University of California, Irvine, and using aeronautics and space data to look down on what different areas of the U.S. are focusing on drought and wildfire. And we're able to be of benefit there, because while it's a very intense academic and technical project, we have the ability to be the translation of that academic work to a much broader audience. You know, actuaries are going to want to hear about what universities are studying. Regulators are going to know how actuaries can put this type of knowledge into practice. So if you're contemplating that, you know, especially with international organizations, the United Nations, the you know, the World Bank, places like that, those are places where we think that we're able to partner up with universities on a lot of different, not just actuarial science type things, but retirement or business or economics type projects, and be successful as part of a, and that kind of rises the tide of everyone when we partner with other organizations on those types of projects. The student opportunities too. You heard Tiffany talking earlier about the research case study challenge. You know, that gets published around the first of the year. Submissions were due for that in March. We just announced the semifinalists. You can see them on the screen. They are very, very global in nature, you know, covering many, many different continents, which is great to see. We get submissions from so many different places around the world. It's impressive. This year's case study had to do with a life insurance company that wanted to implement some wellness programs to kind of improve the health and I guess downstream mortality of their in-force books of business. So created some data, created some ideas that students could take, digest, and then propose back this idea of how they would implement a wellness program for a fictitious life insurance company with all the data that we provided. So it's a great exercise that students really like. Many universities are using this as, you know, a capstone sort of project, getting together a team, working as a team, working as like a proxy consulting firm. And so there's this increasing interaction with students. We also have a few places where we're partnering with universities to become, you know, to use their student talent as part of our research projects. We have an example of that now with Purdue University in the US. I think we'd like to expand that, you know, more globally. So if you have ideas where we can work with you and your students on some of our research that we're doing, that would be great to hear about as well. So that's kind of the conclusion of my formal presentation here. You know, on this screen, I just list things like, you know, again, where to follow, some websites, web links to look at. If you want to connect on LinkedIn, that would be great. I think I try to push out through my LinkedIn the wide variety of things that we're doing in the research world. So whether it's releasing a new project or the launching of a new podcast, or even, you know, we're going to be presenting at our US-based life and annuity conference next week, and we'll certainly highlight some of the sessions that our research is being highlighted there. You know, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and say, hey, we connected, we saw you at the Asia Faculty Webcast. Be great to hear more about what you're doing and connect that way. So Eudice, I guess I will probably, you know, flip it back to you. We'll see if there's some questions that pop up. I'll keep my eyes open for that and see if we can give a little bit more detail as to what's going on at the Research Institute.
Okay, thank you so much, Dale, for your sharing. And for the participant, I will just remind you that if you have any questions, feel free to post it in the Q&A box, question and answers box, and press send. And thanks, Dale. We have, just to quickly recap, we have several items that was shared by you with regard of the research opportunities in the SOA. I'm pretty sure that there will be a lot of interest from today's participant. You also shared a lot about generative AI and how it can help productivity, and also how it can be applied in the insurance industry. There is some opportunities and risks, but we see that there is a lot of opportunity to how we can implement AI in the day-to-day. Even in the SOA.
I see one of the questions is just, you know, can we get a copy of the presentation slides? And I have no issues with that. So we'll either, you know, send out the PowerPoint or print a PDF, and I think the links will come through, and, you know, you can kind of take a look at some of the links that we provided to some of the research work that was noted there.
Yes, thanks, Dale. Yes, so we will share that. Yeah. So I will start with the question first. What are some additional topics that you have outside of the traditional technical actual practice that the SOA is really looking for?
Yeah, I guess, so outside of what I would call, historical, this falls squarely into actual practice things that, might be uh, taught by the faculty here. I'd probably go first and foremost to things like behavioral economics. I think uh, I think our training as actuaries sometimes is a little rigorous on, and as it should be, on the mathematics, the probabilities, the present values, the contingencies and stuff like that. But I think we also have to realize that all that type of stuff is we're doing this work inside the context of the business world, and the business world has revenue and expense and all this type of stuff, and the business world is definitely driven a lot by how consumers behave. What do they like? What they don't like? What types of decisions do they make? And probably even from my own experience working in industry, there was a lot that ended up being driven by behavioral economics of the products that we offer, the way consumers are making decisions. So if there's a way to kind of bring into our research more the concepts of consumer and behavioral economics, I think that's really important. The products that actuaries work on are getting more and more complex all the time. You only have to look as far as variable annuities, and there's like 1,700 different things, options you can exercise, it seems, to on some of these products, and all of those are driven, whether they're in the money or out of the money, is a pretty technical financial exercise. But sometimes that doesn't even matter because consumers are making decisions based upon their own local information. We have a set of projects right now, one in how retirees make decisions, a couple on best ways to ask underwriting questions, and also how life insurance consumers understand the products and benefits that they have. So that's a line of research that we're doing more of, and I think we'll probably continue to focus, even though it's a little bit outside the norm of what I'd call strict actuarial work.
Thank you. And with regard of the international research opportunities, what are some of the international research sponsorship partnership that you are looking for 2024?
Yeah, I think some of that stems from our desire, probably our growing desire, and I think that of our members too, to to do first, experience analysis in some markets that may just not have done a study in the last 7 or 10 years, and trends might be different today. And so we're having some conversations with a few local markets in the Asia Pacific region for sure about, hey, can we pull together? We'll certainly come to the table with resources and ideas and expertise, and if there's a way, whether companies in the insurance companies in those markets or the trade industry in those markets or the Ministry of Finance in those markets, or others, regulators or government entities in those markets, we all want to pool our resources together. I think that's a first example of some research sponsorship and partnerships that would be great to do. There's others where we're looking to study again the trends in retirement risks and attitudes across a variety of Asia Pacific markets, and trying to work with some local industry companies to say, this would be, you want to study that, we want to study that. What if we pool our resources and kind of study it together?
Do you have like a insight from a financial point of view? What are some of the typical financial size of the research projects that has been done by the SOA in the recent past?
Yeah, sure, sure. I mean, I think I mentioned with our our Committee on Knowledge Extension and Research that some of those are smaller, graduate student or early academic projects. They tend to be more in the $10,000 to $15,000 range. I would say our typical, SOA Research Institute project, given the size of it for practice research, is going to be, more like in the $30,000 to $35,000 range. We want to make these projects big enough that when we produce the report, there's a lot of value there. And we're trying to attract researchers who can put the time and effort in to do them. Most of these practice research projects don't happen overnight. They take 3 or 4 months or so to kind of work through, and we know that people are putting a lot of time and effort into them. So I would say those are kind of some of the typical ranges financially of the size of project that we do.
With regard of AI, do you have an insight of what AI tools that the actuarial candidate or actuarial student that they might want to learn early on, such that they can be a strong researcher and can also be a better candidate for potential employers?
I do, and I maybe I hit on this a little bit in the presentation, and I'll go back to the idea uh, is to really understand, the way AI works more broadly is to try to construct something where you actually populate the training mechanism yourself, and put information that in there, and it can be as cool as actuarial science data. It can be as boring as the last three papers you wrote for your composition class or something like that. But at least kind of something that you're populating the training mechanism with. You have a strong knowledge fully of what's in there, and then you're running the GPT type tool against it, asking it different questions. And I think that's beneficial because once you know what's in that training set, uh, you understand better how the GP tool is going and grabbing information, kind of connecting it together, using some of the probability associations, and you can probably have a better understanding of what the tool is generating or producing if you do it in this kind of small sample size set to start with, and then try something bigger, and then try something even bigger, or move from words to data. I think that type of increasing exercise, I would just be fascinated if I was a student actuary these days. I'm jealous, that I'd want to go back and do that, and walk through that process, just so I have a better understanding of the power of what these tools are producing. I guess in my era, it was building first spreadsheets that were doing simple summations, and then doing some macros to add on to that, and then doing some higher level lookup functions to populate. But that just gave me the step-by-step knowledge that when it came time to do something big in the employment world or in the consulting world or whatever, I just had that understanding by laying brick by brick to start how that foundation was built. I think that's really going to be valuable for the next generation of actuaries.
Thank you, Dale. And I'll maybe open for a couple more questions. With regard of the diversity, equity, and inclusions, it has been historically maybe focused towards the US market. How is the SOA looking to broaden beyond the US? In particular, for today's session, it's mostly Asia Pacific region.
Right,
How
right.
is it looking with this?
No, that's a helpful question for sure, because yeah, you're correct. DEI is most typically a US, maybe a North America, most sort of phrase, just given the diversity of populations and the history of the markets here. But I think there's an opportunity for us to take that idea and widen the lens on it for sure. We started to work at the SOA more broadly on this idea of societal purpose of the actuarial profession. And that is, the actual profession is a pretty altruistic profession. We're building financial security programs. I think many of us, kind of take the concept of being a good member of society, and we're living it not only in the actuarial work we do, but in the communities that we're in. So I think the idea here is take DEI as a starting place, but widen the lens on it to all markets around the world and call something more, societal purpose research. What types of research can we do that focuses on, socioeconomics across all markets, or focuses on, disparities in income, or, reducing the protection gap for life insurance or property coverage or something like that in all markets. So I would expect you'll see a lot more of this phrase of, the SOA has this societal purpose mission, and we'll start to do a lot more research projects that have a societal purpose idea behind them.
Thank you. And one last question. Are you working with other actuarial organizations, maybe in this topic context also, maybe like something in the Asia Pacific area, where you are looking like a joint research or like a partnership research?
We are. I mean, it certainly starts here where with a lot of partnerships on research projects with the Casualty Actuarial Society, where that makes sense. I mean, I think we see them as a valuable partner on a lot of risk management research that we do, a lot of general insurance research that we do, a lot of catastrophe and climate research that we do. We've just published literally in the last few months emerging risk survey where they were a partner, a report that was kind of entitled how do we transition out of the pandemic into this, I don't know, the new normal. I don't know how many news I need to put in front of that, because every year it feels like we're in a new normal. But that's a research project that we partnered with the CAS on. And then you're right. I think there's always good interaction with the local actuarial organizations. I mean, just to point out, experience studies, kind of keeping in tune with the Chinese Association of Actuaries. Many of us were just at the Institute of Actuaries of India's annual meeting back 2 months ago in February, and we continually are talking about, hey, what are some joint interests that we have on research in that market that could be beneficial for members of both actuarial organizations, one very local in India, the other, us as more a global education and research organization. So I give Andy a lot of credit, who kicked off the meeting today, for maybe keeping those lines of communication ever open and talking about new things that we can be doing, and putting our minds together and saying, hey, these are really good things that we'd want to pursue jointly with other actuarial organizations.
Thank you for the insight, and great that the SOA is really looking to expand and open communication with all the international actuarial societies. And thank you again, Dale, for your time and sharing today. We have got a lot from insight from you, so thank you again.
Great, good to see everyone. Thanks for inviting me, and hope you enjoy the rest of this, and look forward to connecting with everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dale. And also a big thank you to all our attendees today for joining and for the participation. We have a lot of insight on starting from the opening remarks from Andy, SOA Managing Director for International. We also have had a very insightful SOA education update from Tiffany earlier today, as well as the SOA research opportunities and utilization and regarding AI from Dale. And just to remind, and Q3 and Q4 this year, we will organize part 2 and part 3 of this Asia Faculty Webcast series. And as per shared by Andy in his opening remarks, we will focus on industrial sharing by practitioners about the career options of an actuary, as well as faculty sharing on the best practice, respectively. So with this, it concludes today's SOA Faculty Webcast, and we hope to see you again in the next SOA Faculty Webcast. We look forward to meeting you again. And to remind the participant, after this, you will receive a short survey to provide your feedback on this event. Your participation will help us improve future events. And have a wonderful day. Thank you. Good morning or good night.